So players are really not happy with Cool Tunes. Well, make sure you guys smash the crap out of that subscribe button so you guys don't miss out on more awesome content. So one of the videos that I wanted to talk about, or at least one of the important things from YCS Columbus over the weekend, was genuinely the amount of unhappiness that the player base was talking to me about over the weekend. A lot of people talking about they're just not happy with the current format, which led to a couple of interesting discussions. One, a lot of the player base choosing to go play Genesis format, which was kind of a genuine positive. You know, a lot of the comment sections I read from this community versus what you see at events is a completely different story from each other. A lot of the story that you get from a lot of people just genuinely out here. I know, right? We had to say the line. A lot of the player base online, I mean, like, a lot of these players don't want to go to these events, you know, so do we start to value their opinion as the ones that don't want to go to the event, or do we want to start to value the people that are choosing to go to these events, the ones that are actually going out to the player base, you know, challenges, and the ones that actually want to play the game? So, talking about the disdain for the current format, a lot of what I was reading from the current player base was, I'm not happy with how Cool Tune is working. This also kind of stemmed from the Noroi got banned for no reason, so I can't play trains. Did talk to a couple of those duelists over the weekend. There's also, I don't understand why one deck gets to, hand peak. I don't understand why one deck gets the ability to go into 3 different potential extensions to play the game. And it's a lot of discussions like that were genuinely had by a lot of the player base. Just a lot of, why did Konami allow this to actually interact and happen? Now, as most of you know, Cool Tune didn't even make it to the finals. It was, obligatorily knocked out in top 4, and that means, you had Branded. Now, don't think of the player base isn't, upset about Branded either. It was actually a lot of the Cool Tune duelists I talked to over the weekend that were just like, oh my god, I don't want to play into Branded. It's such an annoying matchup, it grinds us out so much. Also, the same, Cool Tune players are telling me that they don't want to deal with Sky Striker. Well, it's kind of strange, right? When the so-called best deck in the room goes up to bat, 2 decks that can potentially outgrind the deck in a lot of its meta scenarios. Wow. It's the cycle of the meta here. The top meta players don't want to play against the decks can actually outgrind them and make them play the game. And I don't know if you noticed that with a lot of the way that, this set kind of felt like it was, or how this meta was kind of developing, was, the Cool Tune not actually... Cool Tune still being a good deck, but if you've noticed, it kind of feels like Cool Tune's recovery is just kind of the deck's weakness. It goes out, it sets up its big field, being able to do all the targeting negation stuff and all that fun fancy stuff. That's very impressive. And I actually love that about the deck. I find that that's probably one of the most interesting parts about it, is in terms of the kind of stepping away from like the TCG mentality of things. It is a big build-a-board deck that you're going to rely on. But in very TCG designed fashion, the minute that board cracks, and the minute that, somebody sees, oh, hey, I have an opportunity to win this game, players are going to start to go, okay, well, all I got to do is just break apart their board and then kind of clean them up, maybe leave them on 1 card in hand. Now, that 1 card in hand can very much break or make your day. I mean, that's a lot of the way that the Cool Tune matchup actually is. And as we saw, in the earlier stages of the tournament for a few Cool Tune players, in the scenario of that board getting broken, if you don't have the ability to just go or recover, it's game over. That's why, like, when you look at the branded deck in comparison, branded just vacuums up. It just goes main. A lot of players call it main phase 3, where, you know, you get to trigger, you know, the setting of the Fallen and Virtuous and or the activation of the Fallen and Virtuous to revive or pop. You know, it depends on, you know, what scenario you need, and then the add back of the multiple monsters to the hand. You know, it's the recursion of the resources that, you know, really makes branded a scary deck. It's crazy, right? You know, Yu-Gi-Oh players to this day agree that Dark Soul is absolutely terrible. But then when you go look at a deck like branded, who, you know, uses this to regenerate all of its resources while having the modern output of the current meta, that's where you really get to see the oomph and the power actually coming together. And then, of course, you know, once again, we come back to Sky Striker. I mean, the reason why people aren't happy about that is, like, it's still engage. You know, you're still like, you're crazy for playing Sky Striker, man. And it's just like, no, you're not. You're choosing to play Yu-Gi-Oh because you're doing absolutely strong meta things. It's pretty standardized at this point, honestly. But with all of this, you know, being wrapped up, you know, the disconnect from the actual player base and so forth is very interesting. Now, I heard a lot of people this weekend, they were talking about Genesis format. They just wanted to go play Genesis because they could go play their pet deck. You know, I can go play... can we even call Genesis a lower to the floor format? Because, like, I swear I watched Full Power Red Dragon Archfiend do what it could do in modern era Yu-Gi-Oh! Do it in Genesis format where every other deck is kind of powered down around it. And that's fair. So, I mean, like, I'm going to question mark that a little bit, because that's a little bit weird to hear in comparison of things. But looking at things, I understand that Genesis is a slightly more fun format. I understand that, you know, the player base was, you feel a little bit more, if you can really call it, low to the ground in that format. I mean, both formats have problems. I also read from a lot of the players online, they weren't happy about, you know, Genesis being crammed in their face between rounds. You know, it's like, I'm here to watch Modern Era Yu-Gi-Oh! But I guarantee you, after the 9th mirror match of Cool Tune on stream, you would be even more upset at things. You know, it's displacement of disgruntledness. You know, you're disgruntled at fact A, but because you have Genesis in front of you, Genesis becomes the target of your disdain. So at that point, you know, instead of being upset at Cool Tune being in your face constantly, you're now upset about this. You know, you're gonna be mad at something. It's just how this community works. It's quite amazing to me to see, you know, how much upsetty spaghetti that we can see, you know, with these sorts of things. But with that all being said, though, that was a pretty interesting topic of conversation with a few people about Genesis format, how they, you know, they go to the format to, you know, play lower to the ground, and even if they don't win, they still get to play the decks that they enjoy. It's almost like that's what the format was designed to do, but, you know, a lot of the online player base won't let you accept that fact, and you're not allowed to have fun, evidently. Which also brings me back to the YCS. Artmage, the Power Patron buddies. The Medius lore decks are incredibly real in the background of the format. I think with where the things are, I also believe Jeff Jones playing Power Patron something got 10th place out of the weekend. I think that's another problem that kind of needs to be addressed in the background of the format is, you know, the toxicity that those decks are bringing. But because, you know, Cool Tune's kind of the gatekeeper with Branded trailing behind or in front of it, whichever, you know, the lane changing is actually occurring, you know, in between. Depending on, you know, where that's going to go, it really just depends, you know. But seeing Doomsy doing well is, I thought, a good thing. But then, like, you've got the Power Patron problems of the cards being generic. You know, where does the splashability lines kind of come together and so forth? It's a pretty interesting topic to think about. But yeah, once again, your player base ain't happy because of, you know, one deck in the room. I wonder if because it feels like the upsetness is a lot more verbal right now than it usually is. I wonder if Konami will act a little bit sooner on this one. They have in the past, but we'll see. So please, leave a comment down below. Tell me what you guys think. And I'll see your beautiful faces back here later in the day, guys. Patrons! Thank you!
Thank you so much for watching. Check out these other videos.